guys. Today we're just going to talk about some of the third grade math data. If we could just go around and introduce ourselves.
My name is Nicole Cazares. I'm the special ed for K through 5.
Hi, I'm Jessica Luna. I am the 5th grade math teacher.
I'm Jessica Jackson. I'm the 3rd through 5th grade math and science CIC.
And I am Ashley Bear, principal at Normandy Carson Elementary.
Thank you. And I'm Jorge Leon, the 5th grade bilingual math and science teacher. And thank you all for coming. I just want to, go over some data that I've been analyzing and looking at. So, hopefully we get to kind of locate the root cause of what's going on with this data and, hopefully try to improve it. Okay. So, in the case of Normandy Crossing, obviously, we are a Title I school, so the data isn't going to be comparative to, to other schools in maybe in other districts. But what I found most distinguishing was the third grade math data for emerging bilingual population in third grade. So if we look here are the disparities. So in 2022, the state average, the meets percentage in 2022 was 45%. So that means that 45% of the kids achieved at least meets on their STAR test. NCE, it was 21%. And the emerging bilingual population was only 19%. And then in 2023, the state average goes down 2% to 43. But NCE shows great growth and jumps 15 percentage points to 36%. And you would figure that the emerging bilingual population would also reflect that growth. However, the emerging bilingual population actually went down 2 percentage points. So, that was really, interesting to see. And this is just a visualization of that, so you could very clearly see like, okay, look at the great growth that NCE has here, right, from 22 to 23, but the jump there. And this is all in third grade math, and that just speaks to this is just another one for the variance. So variance just indicates like how much it is off of the state average. So in 2022, NCE as a campus, including EBs, general, like all the population that was tested, was at a minus 24 percentage points from state average. And then again, in 2023, they improved 15 percentage points to only get it down to 9%. So there was great growth. But if you see the emerging bilingual population, it went down even further. So this is just another visualization of that from 2022 to 2023. And it's really interesting. I think these might be the kids that I have now.
22 kids.
22, yeah. 22 kids. Yeah, so that's just another visualization. And that's all in comparison to the state. That's all in comparison to the state. And this is another visualization of it, how from state average went down, right? So as a state, we did a little worse than we did from 2023 in comparison to 2022. But that's so I really wonder what caused some of like the great improvement campus wide, right? But that stagnation in the EP population. And this is just a visual of that. So it's good. It's good for campus wide, but we need to have that same type of growth and success with the bilingual students. So in 2022, 17% of the AP students met grade level or above on their math test. And that is a 9 percentage point decrease from the campus figure and a 26% point decrease from the state average, right? So if you're comparing it, whether it be to the campus average or the state average, it's really, really low, you know, alarmingly so. And I know that there's a lot of factors that do go into it, you know, but more, like 28 percentage points or anything around 25% percentage points is really like, it's really exponential, you know, it's really exponential. So in 2023, only 19% of emerging bilingual students met grade level or above on their math STAR test, and it is a 2 percentage point decrease from the campus figure, but it's still a 22 percentage point decrease from the state average, right? So again, I know that the state average it does take all these district schools and students from, you know, that have maybe a lot more resources, you know, they have a lot more factors in their favor, you know, but I feel that even despite all that, there is a way to be competitive, you know, within that. So, and I know meeting with Ms. Bear earlier, she was mentioning that data previous to, and this is only 2 capture dates, so this is 2022 to 2023. I know she was mentioning that before COVID, math was one of the strong suits at NCE, right? So I haven't really, you know, I've never taught 3rd grade, so I'm, you know, not too privy on what exactly the dynamics of that are. But just in bilingual students, it is like interesting to see how they can progress if they're giving the adequate amount of tools and the right guidance on these standardized tests. So these are some of the things, and this is, you know, I would love to hear you guys' opinion on what are some EB challenges. These are just some of the ones that I kind of thought of. The first one being vocabulary, right? So obviously, as they're coming into 3rd grade, that is their first year testing, the first year STAR testing, and you know, they may have not been exposed, especially if they're coming in from other countries. They're having gaps in education, they're having gaps obviously in mathematical concepts. So just something like sum, right? To where if somebody has been here since kinder, they might have a pretty good understanding of what sum is. But if they have never heard that word, or if they have never been exposed to any type of mathematical vocabulary, then they might know how to actually like add 2 plus 2, but in the way it's designed and the way the STAR test is kind of like, you know, just integrated,
In
it
the
requires
context of the word, because the word sum could be, we're doing something, you know, so they can confuse that word sum mathematically to the word sum that you would use in general. There's some things we can look at here. And so even if it's spelled differently, if you're not used to the spelling, especially if you're a new arrival, maybe the test is in English for you, so that word sum can be confusing, because it might not mean addition to a student, but think, oh, there's some things over there, what's that, you know, you might not see it as an addition word, and then that might mess up the entire question, because you don't know what to do, because there is no word to you, there's no word that says I'm supposed to do anything with these numbers.
Right.
You can see that, how that could be.
And was 2022 the first year when we started doing drop and drag, opening the responses,
The new item test.
instead of the new item test, instead of ABCD? I think 2022 was the first year that came out. So that was hard for them. I mean, all students, but definitely for them, because now they have to develop and create the response. And so that was hard for sure. And I'm just thinking about, as a whole, I think we definitely have to target EBs and just math as a whole, but I'm thinking about these particular students. And I do remember having, like, we got an influx of students who were new arrivals, which we always get. But a lot of them in 3rd grade at that time coming off of COVID hadn't been in school for years because of COVID in third world countries. They shut down school just completely, whereas we kept trying to have like remote learning and things like that. So I know that that was a factor, but nonetheless, the data still is sufficient. But I do like that you said like ED may face challenges if teachers assume that the math is culture free and language free, because it's not.
It's not.
It's full of language. It's full of language for all students, and I think that is the new way of doing math. Instead of just computations, that math and science teachers are having to come to that understanding, because it's not just numbers anymore. It has a lot of interdisciplinary skills that are involved.
Yeah.
And complex thinking.
It really does. It really, really does. And just something like a simple vocabulary word that maybe isn't even necessarily an academic vocabulary word could just throw them off. You know, it's like you're taking a test, you're like, I can't think of one, but you know, just something like, wow, I've never seen that word before.
Right.
And now
Difference and different, that's a big
Yeah.
word, Mike, it's difference and different. They sound so similar, but they can mean two completely different things. And if
Yes.
you can't figure it out, you can't figure out the problem.
And that's something that that kind of could really factor in. Another really great point that you brought up, Ms. Barrett, was the technological component of it. You know, to where, so I have a really interesting, great, loving, amazing student. It was his first year in the country, and the one I kind of jokingly, just tell him like, one of your stations during small group is going to be just logging into your computer, right? Because for the first 2 weeks, it was just like, what was it again? And having to write it down and just like, and what program do I go to? And this, so I could just imagine that, having that with the already stress of standardized testing, and also okay, I'm not used to logging in to take tests. I'm not used to putting in passwords to take tests. I'm not used to taking tests online. Now I have to drag and drop. I have to type things in. If I want to like underline something or highlight something, it's not that. Yeah, I don't have that option. So it is a lot different. And their technological component in other countries is probably a lot more limited than us. Like I remember, lots of students, just being so grateful and kind of like just like in shock and awe that like, wow, we get our own computer. Like we really get our own computer, and it was, a happy but sad moment, cause like, that's, so, all of those things really do play a factor. And kind of like another great point that you brought up, Ms. Barrett, was that COVID was a gap for all of us. For worldwide, it created gaps in education. But at least, here within the country, they did have access to some sort of education. Where other countries, it was, so all of that does play a part. So even if it was like, snuck in there, they did receive some content during that time. And this is, I know, in just analyzing some of the questions from the forward or STAR, the abstract nature of these problems has been growing. Like it is like you said, maybe 10 years ago or 20 years ago, it might just be, multiply this and this or divide this and this. But now it's a lot more models. There's a lot more, abstract application. So, if a student has been exposed to that since kinder here in the country, they might be better off in it. But if they're coming in and they have to kind of adopt this way of like looking at these problems, it does take, some time.
The two-step problems that are like, hey, they had a birthday party and they divided the cake into like 6 pieces, and they're like, oh, okay, they would sometimes have to relate the questions to what they know when they try to, with the vocabulary. So I do see where you're coming from with that, with the real world setting. And their parents trying to help them, because parents are new here too. They're trying their best to try to be there for their child, and they're also learning so it's a little bit stressful.
That's a really good point. I don't think well, I mean, that is a really good point of like, it is also new for the parents.
They go to the store, they go on
Yeah.
vacation, they do this ride, all these things that, you know, you might not have been exposed to, so.
Yeah, you know, I'm not, maybe they weren't required to complete homework in other countries, or, you know, they weren't required to, you know, have certain grades to not fail.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that is really good, because obviously the more input parents have into their education, and the better off they'll be, you know. So I know, like, just having different stories of my students, just like, oh, you know, I have to go to immigration, I might get deported, you know, or my visa is expiring, or like different things, you know, that's kind of like put into perspective that perhaps, you know, my math homework is not gonna be a priority. It's not gonna take center stage over all of these other, you know, dilemmas that I'm battling. So we do have to, you know, make it equitable, make it accessible to all of our students, you know. And I think a lot of these challenges that affect EB students, they affect all of our students. They just really have to, you know, make you're fine, Ms. Lane, you can come
You know, I was wondering something else too, like, do we know if the data, because I'm just thinking about back in 2022, because last year, 2024, this past year, was the first year where we had the same passing rate for English and Spanish. Because before that, they had different passing rates. So like if they took it in Spanish, they had a passing rate
that was
higher. And if they took it in English, they had a lower passing rate. So I'm just wondering, you know, I don't know how big, but it's just different data points that I'm just considering, like how many of them took it in English, how many took it in Spanish, what was the disparities in Spanish scores versus English scores, because that could contribute to the, you know, the disparity in the numbers, because it used to be higher in Spanish. Like if they took it in Spanish, they had to score higher.
Yes.
And that was really, really hard, because the vocabulary is so much harder in third grade. In Spanish in general, like it's not the same language they use. Or what you call it? The proper Spanish.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's hard because they don't typically use proper Spanish in their day-to-day communication.
Yes.
Or if they're from one country, they may say things one way, Cuba may say it one way, but El Salvador may say it another way. And so that's still vocabulary, because I don't know the terminology in my language, you know? So those are just factors that I'm considering as we're looking at it and processing it.
Yes, no, I agree, and that is a really good distinction to have. So unless I missed it, I don't know if the taper report really specifies like math, like English test, math test. I mean English test, Spanish test.
They just kind of put it overall as.
Maybe
like,
go to 5, let's see.
Last row?
Yeah, the EO,
Yeah.
like all.
Oh yeah. So like they do, like they do have like the EBs, but I like just like, okay, here are our math statistics, and here are our English statistics and our Spanish statistics.
They just combine.
They just combine them. Yeah.
together,
So
yes.
maybe some of those students received the 45,
Right.
so they failed the Spanish one,
Could've been,
but they
right.
might have passed the.
Could have been a passing in English.
Could've been
and
a passing in
45,
English.
Possibly,
Yes.
possibly.
Yeah, possibly. So that is really good point. And I didn't have time to you know, kind of key in on like the ELA ones, but you know, look at the ELA third grade. Let's see, where is it? it's not as steep of a drop off. Let's see, where is the third grade math? It's our third grade math. Third grade reading. It's 2022. Oh, well, I guess with 46 to 30%. The campus was 46.
Then we went down to 41, and then 47 to 9.
So this was 30%, and 41 and 33. So the jump is also low, but not as drastic as math.
Right.
Which is interesting because I figured like, yeah, they would be a little more in reading. But yeah, it's just so many components that go into it. And Ms. Leone, I'm so glad you came because we're really talking about your.
And she has background knowledge in the second grade too, to help
Yeah.
us understand a little bit about. So what would be the biggest jump or the biggest, I guess, disparity that you've seen in the first 9 weeks from second to third grade?
I mean, it's a lot. So like graphs, I've seen like that to them. I feel like that's confusing because in second grade they're taught graphs, but not to the complex. Where here we're like, okay, you're adding the questions now. You're adding the questions, and then you have to like
Analyze.
the data. So in second grade, I know we were creating graphs, but we were creating simple graphs. It wasn't too complex. So now it's just them actually analyzing the graph. I think that's confusing. And even with word problems, that's something they still struggle with. So far from what I've seen. Right now I'm trying to think, I know we're going into multiplication, with word problems, and I just feel like the vocabulary is gonna be so confusing. And so I think they're also gonna be confused where it's like word problems, so right now they're thinking word problem and it's like addition, subtraction. Now I'm gonna be adding multiplication, that they're gonna be all over the place.
So you mentioned vocabulary in English, vocabulary in Spanish, or both?
Both.
No, that's really.
And I'm thinking, when I looked at her, I thought about it, because one of the things that Ms. Leon's working with right now is that her students don't have any language. I don't know if y'all ran into that like a lot, but like they're not strong in Spanish or in English. Like they don't have any, they're not, she doesn't really have much to pull from in Spanish, right? You could describe it.
I only have like maybe like 3 students that are probably like good in English and in Spanish, and maybe like 1 student in Spanish, but like the rest of it is just that vocabulary. So in class I try to like reinforce a lot of like, let's say like for example like place value, reinforcing the place value chart, and it's like just reinforcing that math vocabulary so they can start getting used to it. But also, I mean, I need to really look, because I think vocabulary is a little bit different, because I don't know what they're using to translate STAR, if that makes sense, because I know in Euphoria, so like expanded form in Spanish is forma expandida, and then in Euphoria is desarrollada. So that's 2 completely different things, and so they're like, what does this mean? Like, well,
Yeah,
so
and that will throw them off.
it will throw them off
And that will
completely.
throw them off, because they can't make that
They
connection.
can't.
Right.
No, that's really good. That's really good.
Yeah.
Good point.
So
It's-
STAR sets it one way,
So I don't know how
testing them
STAR
another
says-
way.
Yeah,
And you.
yeah, it's a lot, it's hard. So it's like, they can be, like, I can teach it in Spanish and show them this way, this vocabulary, but in STAR, I don't know if they're gonna show like Euphoria, like desarrollada. So it's like, now I have to go back and be like, it's this. It's actually this, guys, couldn't make that connection.
But that's good that you're picking up on those trends now, because you have so much
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
You
Because
have so much time. I pulled up the 22 release test because now I'm interested in like what exactly.
How they look like.
Yeah, what did they look like? All right.
Oh, yeah.
So okay, some like the expression showing
Record your answer.
what number is equivalent. So this would be a type in. A type in, and this is interesting. Like usually how at least in 5th grade how experimentation is, it goes in descending order, right? So to where the hundreds are in first, and then tens, then ones. So it's interesting that they chose
third grade, they teach them to mix it up because you're not always gonna see it, or they'll combine
Descending
things.
order.
You could have a couple of hundred, so 700 plus 300 plus 4,000 plus 3,000, and you have to know to combine your thousands and your hundreds. Which I have seen that they lessen that as you go to fourth and fifth, because I guess the students, they perceive already know it, but in third grade, it's a lot of combining two or more.
Yeah, they may have it like that, they could sometimes have it like 700 plus 40 plus 5, so it's the opposite way,
Yeah.
trying to confuse them.
That's funny. I remember doing a presentation for the district, and it was so funny. Even in the presentation itself, I had to ask like the attendees, like, what is decomposing again? Because I'm not. I guess it's not as like a focus in fifth grade of composing and decomposing numbers, but it is essential to their understanding of these concepts. Let's see. Comparison is true. Okay, that one shouldn't have been too, but yeah, this one was pretty easy for them. Left to right. Okay, so visuals. This is great. Don't see this a lot in
Fifth grade.
no, that would be cool though. Yeah. But this concept here, even still that we do order least to greatest, it is you would figure by fifth grade we would have 100% achievement on this, and we do not. So let's see, fractions. A lot of pictures, yeah. Has it been
Third grade's more unit based,
more pictures? Okay,
Like
makes sense.
visuals and representations.
and they really do unit based fractions, so they're just combining the same things. You're not having to like flip a fraction and numbers, yeah.
Ms. Luna, you taught third grade too, right?
Yes, third grade was fun.
Third, fourth, fifth.
I found fourth grade
I
really
really
easy
enjoyed
on that.
third,
yeah.
Fourth grade was easy, cause they had they already had
Oh,
the foundation
base,
from third, and so it was just a step up. Everything was just a little bit
Yeah.
bigger, just a little bit bigger, and I felt that they just grasped it a lot more than our poor third graders did. Well, I know.
So we have to, but we have to have these conversations a second to
Yeah.
bridge the alignment, so like,
Where it is.
especially since you've been there, you're like, I wish I would've taught them this in May, knowing I was gonna be their teacher in September, right?
Yeah.
So just keeping that conversation going with the math teachers in second grade, because there are some things that we can just add and incorporate, like you teach them graphs in second, just start analyzing the graph with them, start having that conversation with them, so that way they're used to doing that when they get to third, and it's not like, I never heard this, I don't know anything about this, except I've seen the graph before,
Yeah, no, that's really true.
What about the Spanish? I never did the Spanish third grade test.
The Spanish third grade test, oh, that's really good.
Will they still give them the same pictures?
That's a
Yeah,
good.
they get the same
Okay.
pictures, yeah, it's just the vocabulary thing, I think that will be, yeah, the vocabulary is not what they're accustomed to hearing or
Like she
speaking or
said, right?
seeing,
Mhm.
it's different.
And then sometimes they can speak it, but they don't know what it looked like in print.
What about their text to speech? Is it really good? Or is it like, does it sound okay?
On third grade, cause everybody get a read too.
Do they?
But the language is different, so like they hear it one way, they know it one way, and then they hear something different, that's hard.
Yeah, so that same question we're looking at.
When you put like this.
Yeah, this word I know, like for
That's
that
a
might
word
go-
that they're.
Nah,
Oh,
yeah.
that would be used. That's pretty
Yeah,
good.
because it is very academic. It's not
Yes.
like a
So what word would
commonly
you
used.
guys
What
use
would
in
you
place of
say?
it? Yeah, what would you say?
As the
Equal?
teacher.
Igual,
Igual.
same.
Es igual,
Sí,
yeah.
sure.
¿Qué número es igual a este?
But,
So you really have to talk to them like.
With
as
those
a
academic-
professor,
Like
Yeah.
like you're
very
as an adult, you
academic,
have
like
to talk that
professor
style.
style.
Yeah, and I didn't know that. I always thought my Spanish was proficient until I had to study for my test, and
Oh.
it was like, oh no, like there could be some improvement because it is very.
You, like as an adult, taking the test, you would see a word like this and say, oh,
It looks like
equivalente,
equal.
equal, it looks like, I can make,
Yes.
I can make
Child,
sense of it,
Makes
but to
sense.
somebody that's 8 or 9 years old, they're not gonna look at that and be like, oh, that means probably equal, or use the context clues from the rest of the question to come to that conclusion.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
For
So
the,
that's a stress
I know
factor.
this is like for just third grade, but like, I know for the unit test, it had a question like this, and many of them were asking me, they were like, what does this mean?
Yeah. Like equivalente or?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
No, well, it's like I said, a good thing that.
And what did you say in class? What words were you using in class?
I was saying igual.
Oh,
It
and so
was
when they saw
saying-
equality.
Yes, so when I saw it, I was like, oh my goodness,
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, oh no.
Izquierda, derecha. So it is, I guess, very similar, like with the pictures. And this is good. I was looking at this picture, so we look at this question, it's like, you know, I know even in 5th grade, students might see this and know, okay, I see 8, and I see 8 baseballs. Where am I gonna get the other number from?
Right.
Right? To where, like, obviously, I know that we have to, like, really have them really analyze these problems. But with somebody who has limited proficiency in a language, you have to like kind of like, that was like, I'm giving you, I was like, I'm giving you the whole secret sauce. You just have to pay attention, you know? So in things like this, it is more difficult because, you know, they have to know that, you know, they give you 2 names, so it is 2 people, right? So it's very
That's in
easy.
2022, like that's multi-step thinking though, like you have to make that connection. Carter and Daniel, 2 people.
Yeah, 2 people.
And they only say 2 people once, like up there, you know, they might say it we down here, but like only mention their names one time.
Right.
They gotta keep.
Yeah, because the question just asks each person.
Yeah, each person.
Each person. Mhm. That's hard.
This is a lot of reading. Video, longitud, de los gusanos, longitud, let's see. Length, oh, okay, longitud. That's another
That's
word,
a-
I would
that's
have
another
not,
one.
you have used longitud in,
For length.
for length, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, length.
What would you say?
Largo.
No, that's a different word, you can just
It's
get
completely different.
Yeah, so, I don't know if
It's completely
if they do, if
But
they,
it makes
that word
sense,
in there.
it makes sense now why, just talking to y'all and listening through this, it makes sense why sometimes we see them do better on English and it's getting read to them, because they know link, because when you're teaching it to them, you're usually saying it both ways. And I heard y'all both say it in Spanish and English, link, and then you say it in Spanish. So when they hear the thing reading to them and they say link, they know what that means, because in English you can read to them,
yeah.
they
I-
can qualify for that, yeah. that's
Yeah, I agree. I was like, you know, Ms. Jackson's been in here when we're going over star problems, but I was like, we're gonna keyword,
Yeah.
we're gonna, you know, there's gonna be something in there to let you know kind of like that this is what that question is really asking. Yeah, so, I mean, how many seats are green?
So a lot of math.
It is, yeah, they have to
That's a
add
lot of
that.
work.
And then the rest of them are green.
Yeah,
Has to add it
How
all,
many
subtract
seats are
it
in?
from-
Add what you know, subtract from the whole.
yeah.
But it's third grader, you know, that's just
Third grade.
third grade.
Multi-step problems
And
when you're
They're gonna
introduced
try to
really.
add
Yeah,
all 3
second grade.
numbers at once.
And then that's
Second
together,
grade.
together, it's gonna be
Not
Third
down.
grade is the introduction of 2 and multi-step problems where you're doing.
Well, I even started towards the end of the year, with the 3rd graders that I have now, I started showing them multi-step problems, just getting them to get into that thinking, but either way, they're still.
When you're used to one step for the
Because there's
majority of
so
your
many.
years, you're confused when you throw a second, what do you mean I have to do something else, like down an answer?
It's like,
And
when
then
they
they give
add
the
those
answer too,
3,
so that makes it
they're gonna
hard.
see the answer down
Yep,
there, and
and
they
then-
say, whoo, I'm
Because
done.
it-
Yeah,
They hurry
either
up
one.
But-
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, they're gonna be done, or trying to add all 3 numbers up, doing the algorithm, and not regroup something or do something
A
wrong.
minor error.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was really interesting. I guess I don't analyze like the other 3rd and 4th grades
Grades.
enough, but it is interesting. I remember even in going, Ms. Lynn, do you remember when we went to the, oh, Ms. Kutari, you were there, when we went to the
Okay.
meeting, at training,
They even
and we
said,
were analyzing a 4th grade problem,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, was it fractions?
I think so.
Fractions?
Right, yeah.
So where they were like asked something, and I was like, I know with 100% certainty that my 5th grade students would struggle with this, and I feel like it's sometimes like even easier
Yeah. And
you know,
they mentioned that, they said the fourth grade test, I think, was the most challenging, yeah, the fifth grade test is a little bit easier compared to the fourth grade. And I was like, oh.
And you found fourth grade to be the easiest.
From third, yeah.
From third to fourth.
Yeah.
No, I'm just making that connection, I'm just making that
It
connection.
was, because I felt like they
'Cause they
moved
had a
more
base
of
level, yeah.
that language, cause it wasn't there in second, that
Right.
academic language was kinda there, but it wasn't,
Yeah,
third
it
grade, you got the
wasn't
real
really there.
formality
Yeah.
of it, and then
Mhm.
fourth grade, you knew based on what it was. I haven't done fifth, but
yeah.
You know what,
No,
That's just-
I enjoy this.
all the
I
time.
think-
I keep saying that, but I love
Cause I know fifth just seems like part two,
Yeah, it is.
like a continuation of its concepts.
Right.
At least when I'm introducing a topic,
They
I'm
have some
like,
basics.
what do you know about this?
Yeah.
So they have something,
Like your
you
fourth,
know.
third graders, rounding is completely new to them, multiplication is a foreign concept, like
Yes.
all of it is.
Even those things where, I don't know how much they do in a second, I can't think off the top of my head, but like where it says, is the statement true?
Mhm.
That is so
Yeah.
hard for them.
That and not true.
Not true.
Yeah.
Not
And they-
true is
They don't, and
tomato
it's
ranch.
like,
Right.
oh my goodness, I'm just thinking about like, just being in the, observing in classrooms, and then like, I did tutorials with them one day, and just breaking that down for them. So I'm like, is it right or wrong? Like, literally,
Right.
like you have to kinda, that was
Yeah.
hard, that's hard for them
Yeah.
to make that concrete, and I hate those words,
It's
they're
that-
true or not true.
That and also what two options or something. It's
Yes,
like
when they start doing multiple,
where
yes.
they click,
Yes.
they have to click on it.
And then, cause then they start to think, does every question have more than one answer, or only this one? So that confuses them too. Oh, but poor babies, and they're only 8.
Yeah.
It's hard, they're only 8. It's so,
It is,
it's hard. It's hard to watch. It's hard to watch too, cause they're only 8, and that's really, and you can see their brains like, is this what it says? Is it true? True? What true? True or false? True? Is it right? Is it correct? Which one is correct? Which one is not correct? That's hard for them.
Yeah, so there is a lot of, I guess, you know, mitigating factors in third grade, you know, because
Yes.
when they get to me, they are, at the very least, they are, you know, somewhat accustomed to test taking and all the pressures that come with test taking. You know, they have,
teach test taking.
Yeah.
you know, these like pressurized situations, because I find it so interesting that whenever we're doing like, you know, when I have small groups, there's plenty, like, it would be like 100% accuracy, right? And then, like, even in word problem form, like, the exact, like, it's delivered in the exact same way as something that they'll see independently. But when they do it independently, it's a lot different. Yeah, so, I always tell them this, and I, like, you know, I kind of, like, I find it just as important, to have test taking strategies, you know, like, and motivating them, you know, you have to nearly hype them up like it's game day, you know, like in these, you know, they have to know that, like, nah, it's important. And I would like honestly sometimes will lie to them and say like, oh, y'all were top 5 class in the whole, in the whole, y'all was like top, everybody got 100%, you know, so it's like, you just kind of like, no, you have to get them there, you know, because they're like, okay, I'm right there, I can contribute to that, I contribute to that.
I did that too, Jakes was so excited.
That's so true, so take that tidbit back, even though, you know, you got your unit exam, but just take it back.
Oh my God.
We're gonna talk about it.
But yeah, it's great. So these are, Ms. Leon, some of the things that we spoke about whenever you were, before you got here. So yeah, vocabulary, the abstract nature of it, and the cultural assumptions. And the last one, it is really important because, like, you know, and if the test, you know, ideal world, the test would be unbiased, you know, and minorities, you know, across the board wouldn't feel marginalized in these standardized tests. But data shows like they really are, like, you know, so I always like, I will show you like a quick example of like something, like I always, whenever I'm doing reviews with them, I really try to make it as like culturally inclusive as possible. So like I would take something, this is the one that we just did, like, so I would take something like that, let's see, like, yeah, like I would literally just like use the same questions that they have, put in their names and something that they like,
They
right?
see it before
Because
maybe.
that math might be the exact same, like the rigor of the math is the exact same, but if they see their name on it, you know, and like just some type of visual aid, like they're just literally just much more inclined to like
Focus.
to perform on it. So I always try to like, that is very like, you do have to be culturally responsive and just like look at their interests, what they're into, what they like.
Building relationships with
Yeah.
them goes a long way.
Cause
Yeah.
like they had the movie theaters, but the reality is that some of our kids don't get to go to the movie theaters.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that picture they had up there, but our babies don't get to go to the movie theaters sometimes. And so some of the closest times that they do get to go to the movie theaters is when they're in 5th grade and they go to the symphony. And it's seated like a movie theater in the sense of like the way that the seats are. But things like that, you know, those are, like you said, where the inequities come in because it can be assumed that everybody gets to go to the movie theater, and that's not true. That's not true.
Not true, yeah.
Or
So
vacation.
No vacation.
Or theme parks.
Right. That's not true.
yeah, so it is really important to have that, keep that in mind because you know they really, you know, the greatest gift in this profession is just like unlocking that potential within those students. You know, but if we already just look at them as deficient, then you know we have already kind of like set ourselves and them back. So we do have to like really just like no, like you can. I just have to like kind of like know like how I'm going to get you there, how to bring it out of you.
And he doesn't have, I'm gonna send it to you because I think it'll help with your like data and stuff. But one of the things that we've seen in comparison to like Galena Park, Channelview, Crosby, what was it, Dayton might have been on there, Goose Creek was on there, HISD, Aldine was on there. Although these numbers are what they are, but in general, like Galena Park students are outperforming these other districts by a long shot. And especially when it comes to the area of like economically disadvantaged. I think that's the one that we're doing really good in. But just to show like, we are doing a really good job of working with students who have different adversities in their lives and things like that. And so it's cool to see though, because they deserve the best. And so what it does is it puts them at a fighting chance with all these kids who go to Humboldt, Goose Creek, Aldine, HISD. When they're in 12th grade or 11th grade trying to go to UT, they're in the contention of that because now they have performed well and continuously performed well, where they get a fighting chance to have those opportunities that will better their life. And so it's really cool to see, you know, how it goes. It is. I'll share. I'll send it to you. So you can
Thank
share.
you, yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah, it makes you feel good about the work that you do, for longevity of it, that we're doing good compared to surrounding districts.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Berry. Yeah, I agree. And obviously these are just some solutions, literally just quick thoughts on what we spoke about, you know, because at the end of this is like, okay, maybe we're seeing where the issues may lie. Now let's improve upon those issues. So making math relatable, how we just spoke about, you know, it's something as easy as just copying and pasting a word problem and including their name, or like, you know, something that they see. Reduce context switching, so I guess just kind of like segmenting what they're being introduced to, because just within a mathematical concept, I know sometimes it requires like 3 or 4 mini mathematical concepts, you know, so just really scaffolding each of those, and culturally sustaining pedagogy, is that how you say it? Pedagogy, yeah.
I love that.
So yeah, just having that for their home language, and at least when they're producing within the classroom, I don't want them to be limited in how they can produce, you know, so whenever they're explaining something, or kind of like, even I have them record a lot of videos, like I have, like, as long as you arrive at the solution, you can explain it English or Spanish, you know, just know, keep in mind that, you know, standardized tests won't be that way, but I do want you to attain these concepts, you know, so all these are some of the things that we could do, but obviously there's like a million, you know, different things that we can improve on. And I just wanna ask you guys, what are some vertical and horizontal implementations that could be done to kind of improve upon these?
Kind of like what Barrett was saying, for second grade, kind of incorporate some of those little third grade things that could help for the previous year, so just mentioning graphing, or you can do something like multiplication style, maybe relate it more to what a test question might be, or an example of a third grade question could be, just to expose them to it, not grading wise, but just so they can see it before.
Mm-hmm.
And just like even the teacher understanding the vertical alignment, like where they were last year, what they have to know next year, just so you know, like, if you can fill in any gaps while you still have those students would be like the best thing to do and beneficial for them, because then when they go on to the next level, then we will probably see more growth.
Yeah, no, that's really good.
And I guess I'm answering the question with the question, and it's not something to answer like right now, but in a perfect world, right? And we know we're gonna get new arrivals. What does that look like for us to service them best? Like, what does that look like? So, I mean, I'm just throwing ideas. Like, in a perfect world for me, it would be like a new arrival group, like where they can all come together and like have vocabulary practice, and they can have just some language, like, you know, baselines of things that we can teach them on how to do things, and then they go back to class. Like, in a perfect world for me, like those are things in a perfect world it would look like to me. So I'm not asking you to answer now, but just like, what would that look like for us in a perfect world? Because I know dual language framework that could be embedded into the class and things like that, but the reality of it is that they still can come way behind, especially when they're getting here third grade, fifth grade, they are way behind. So like, what would that look like? What does that look like in a perfect world? You know, so just thoughts, not a question that we have to answer today, but it's just something that I think it deserves our attention, because it's not gonna stop, and it doesn't change. And yes, we get some of them there, but not all of them. And so what can we do within our campus to meet those needs better for those students? Because once they leave here, they're not gonna get any instruction in Spanish at all. I mean, unless somebody can translate a little bit for them, but they're on their own once they leave.
Yeah, and there's a lot more shelter here.
Yeah, and so just in a perfect world, what can we do to improve that process for our assimilation for our new arrival students without having like a full new arrival center?
I mean, right now, what I've been doing, since I have a bunch of new arrival students, is, with the bilingual department, they taught us the bridge.
Yes.
And I think for me,
That's it.
honestly, it's been amazing, because it's just, I teach the vocabulary, even though it's a Spanish or English week, it doesn't matter. I do the bridge, and then, I write the vocabulary words in English and in Spanish, so they can see that. So they can see that, how do you say it in English? And then after that, we write the cognates. So which words look closer to each other. And so we started looking at that, and so then I know they like to make a connection, so they're like, total in English is total, and then in Spanish is total. It's spelled the same, but said differently. And so they like to make those connections. So when it's an English week, whenever I'm teaching, and let's say if it was a word problem, they look at the bridge and they're like, oh, it has that vocabulary word, and then they actually say it. So it gets them more to speaking, and it's like, oh, if it says that, then if I don't even understand the rest of it, it says total, so I may have to do something with adding. And so then they'll ask for help, or like I'll pair them up with someone who speaks more English, and so they can help them read it to them.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking, right, like in my mind, because I try to think outside the box. And I love your bridge. I've seen it, it helps me when I'm there. You do a great job. But I'm like, what's that? Like this lady, she does them in different colors, so it's amazing, it's great. But like, I'm just thinking, like, I'm listening to y'all talk, like, even vocabulary, right? Like, if we needed to, we could do like that's a job, like a parent could tutor with them after school, like going over vocabulary. It doesn't require knowledge of content. It just requires repetition to try to get them to learn different things, you know, I don't know, I'm just thinking out the box.
Yes, no, yeah,
I'm
that's,
just thinking of different things.
yeah, even older grade level kids.
Yeah, like they might need,
A buddy system.
tutorials where they may
Vocabulary.
go to vocabulary for
Yeah.
cognates, bridging, things of that nature. So I don't know, we'll just think, if y'all think of some more things, I'm just thinking of ways to, because we're gonna be here, but we have to put systems in place to address the need, and so that we can address the gap, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And so the disparities are not as large. And yes, you guys do an amazing job, but we can still try to figure out other ways to support and supplement
Right.
outside of the classroom.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I think just even in the social emotional aspect of it, too, like they do have to like, maybe coming into a new country, I don't know anyone, I don't know the language all the time.
That's hard.
You know,
It looks
yeah,
different.
and you know, from an external perspective, you know, it might be like, oh, you know, a bilingual classroom, but like you know, like, yeah, like maybe all of their classmates come from, you know, Salvador or Cuba, but they're coming from Venezuela, and I don't know anybody, and all of the homonyms that that like, you know, it is different, you know, and it can be completely different culture and kind of relation to their academics. So it is just having them feel supported, you
Just as
know,
multicultural in here.
as individuals, and then, you know, I think the more you pour into them as individuals, then their academics will also follow suit. I think another great thing that I've really found like growth in this is just like if they're able to like produce like their own thing. So I have them do a lot of videos, and even in the videos, like they'll look at each other's videos and like they'll learn from one another. So like I always think, I was like, if it was only me up here teaching, it would be so much more difficult. So you have to use those students in your classroom as assets. Yeah, but thank you guys so much.
Good conversation.
Hope
Thank you
y'all
so
have
much
a
for
great day.
meeting us.
Yes, I owe you all favors.